Hello. So this is the next video talking about the reference interview, and we've done question negotiation, and now we are talking about searching for an answer. So this is the part where you've done the initial part of the reference interview. You think you've found their ultimate question, and now you really want to go out and find the answer. So there's a lot of sort of pitfalls here. If you are, the way that we have it set up in my job now, we have public service librarians, and people will come in on chat and someone will ask a question, and if it is something that the person who answers the chat can answer and look up and find the answer, they'll just give them the answer. And a lot of questions are like, where's the bathroom, or do you have a stapler, things like that. And then some things are what's called in this, another jargon, another librarian term, ready reference. And those are answers that can be quickly looked up and just provided. So what's the population of New Mexico? That sort of thing. That's ready reference. How many people have won an Academy Award? That's ready reference. And then your other kinds of research reference, it kind of blurs. And how we handle it at Texas State is that you have the chat, and then it will get handed off to a subject librarian if that answer needs a specialized knowledge, or if it's a longer search, then that they need to set up a consultation, and they'll meet with the subject librarian. Now we're doing it via Zoom, but they'll actually have this whole sort of search for the answer together. And so if somebody wanted some sources or information because they're doing a paper on set design in the 18th century, then they would set up a consultation with me, and I would show them the databases that we had. We would try to formulate a search, a query, and then we'd start looking. And that's how we would conduct that. So that's how it happens in that particular setting. And it really depends on your patron. So if it's faculty and they're doing research, they may either want you to do the work for them, or they may actually just want the sources and they can do the work. So they just want the databases, links to the databases. So you're really, part of your reference interview is trying to figure out that kind of information. So if it is a situation where you are helping them search, and this is how it worked when I worked in a law firm, is I was really the one doing the search, because if it was really something that they knew how to do, they would, the lawyers would be doing it themselves. So they're either coming to you because they don't know how to start, and you can help get them started, or they're coming to you because they've already done the search and they've hit a wall and it's difficult. And so then you're going out and doing the search yourself. So one thing to keep in mind is knowing what you have the time to do and the capacity. So if someone wants you to do a literature review for them, that's probably outside the scope of your job, unless you make some kind of special arrangement with them, or unless they've contracted you to do that, or that you're on a grant together and you've agreed to do it. But you can get them started and you can help them. So part of the reference interview is negotiating what you can do and what you can't do. And sometimes that's difficult. It's difficult to turn work away. And I don't like to, but we have limits. We are one of the limited resources. Sometimes you will think an answer is fairly simple and that you can just look it up, and it turns out it's not. So you do have to keep that patron updated with all kinds of information, because if you give them the impression in the beginning that it's going to be simple, and then they don't hear from you for 2 weeks, and then you say, well, yeah, I couldn't do it. You just have to keep them in the loop I try to be as honest as I can, and as, if I failed at something or if I can't find it, just be upfront. I thought this would be easier, it's not, and then give them um, sort of an overview of what the work you've done. And we'll come back to that in a bit. I don't like to do work while people are looking over my shoulder. And sometimes people will actually want to come. I mean, even in the days of COVID, I've heard that this is still a problem. Someone wants to come around behind you at your desk, or they want you to sit down in their desk and then say, hey, yeah, I can't. It just isn't conducive to focusing and great focused work. So unless you can just look it up right then, I always tell people I can get back with them. I'll send them the results, but that I need a little bit of time. And this actually can help you distance you from the person. It's not as threatening. It's not as anxiety building. And you do need that time to think. A lot of times when that person is right on the spot, you need to go to your quiet place and sort of think through the process that you need to do to actually get the work done. And that's perfectly acceptable. You do not have to perform the work right then for them, unless it is a really emergency situation, or if the person is your boss. And, sometimes it's awkward. And a boss in the sense of immediate supervisor. Use the best resource. This becomes tricky because a lot of times the best resource is going to cost extra money, but it's just something I've learned. Use the best resource you can, because ultimately you're going to have to go to the best resource to double check your work. So quality really does matter. It's just a tip. Also estimate the cost and the time it's going to take you. I do like to put these things in writing. I like to put everything in writing, and I learned that the hard way. It's just a tip. You do need to estimate the cost if it's going to cost them something. In an academic setting, we don't have as much of that, but in a law firm setting, a lot of times you will have an extra cost, or the amount is getting billed out to the client. So it's very important that you estimate the cost. Sometimes it'll be an outright charge, and we'll talk about that later in the semester a little bit about how billing works for databases and for research, and how the billing of time works. But generally people want to know how much it's going to cost, even if it's not them spending the money. So say it's the library spending the money, they still want to know if it's going to cost $350 to lease this thing, because they may think, oh, it's not worth it to do that. So it's always good to put that. It's good to put it in writing as well. It will protect you. And then get approval for costs before incurring the charges. And that means approval for definite costs. So make a ballpark figure. This is going to cost me $100, or this is going to cost $5,000. This is how much it costs. And this is this is how long it will take. It's going to take 3 days. It's going to take a week. It's going to take 20 minutes. Be as open as you can, and don't overpromise. So that's just something I learned. Okay. Yeah, one thing you do need to know is how long does a search take? And you get this with yeah, I mean, when you first start out looking for things, you kind of underestimate and overestimate. So you don't, you think it's going to be easier. You forget how long it takes to actually do some digging. So you'll get the more you do it, you'll get a better idea of how long it takes to do something like that. And it takes longer in different sources. If you have to use print sources, it might take longer than electronic. That's a generalization. And then triage. So you will sometimes be so busy that you will get 3 or 4 more questions at once. And you have to be able to identify the most important, the most pressing questions. And you have to do triage. I mean, you don't have to let everybody know where they line up in that triage, but you do have to make decisions and put some things on hold. Some things can wait, and just get to them as soon as you can, or hand them off to someone else. That's perfectly acceptable. I actually do it quite a lot, where I will ask someone else, say I'm busy, I've got to do this for so and so, and can you do this for me for this person? And they can say no, but a lot of times if they know what you're up against, and they'll help out. And a lot of times that's, it may be their job as well. We kind of worked as a team, all the librarians, when I worked at the law firm. So it was pretty typical if we got busy, for people to say, hey, can you do this for someone? Because I'm doing this for somebody else. Yep, so keep them updated, and give the patron options if you have options. So an example, it comes up it came up a lot in the law firm setting that, well, I can get this to you by the end of the day, but it's going to cost $100. I can get it to you in 3 days and it won't cost anything. And it really doesn't, just depends on what their situation is. They may need something quicker and may not be as the cost may not matter as much. Beware of people saying the cost doesn't matter, because the cost always matters. They're thinking low costs. So it's like, oh, if it costs a few $100s to them, it won't matter. But if it's a few thousand, it does matter. So always get that part like in writing. Or just, and the way you get things in writing is just to do what's called a memoranda. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be an email back to the person saying, I enjoyed speaking with you. These are the things I'm going to do for you. I'm going to look for this, this, and this. I'm going to get it to you by this date. It's going to cost this much money. You just put it out there. It's just to memorialize your conversation, and it gives them the opportunity to correct anything that's wrong in there. And sometimes they'll go, oh yeah, now that I think about it, I don't need this, or gives them that chance of thinking about it. It's a little bit of distance. So yeah, you really, if you can, ask to get back with them. Then this will provide you cover. One thing, they won't be there trying to talk to you while you're trying to search. But another thing is, you may not know what they're talking about, and you need to find out. And you don't want to show your hand. You don't want to look stupid. This actually comes up a lot if you're sort of out of your element, and it gives you some cover. You can go to somebody else and say, what would you do in the situation? And have you ever had this question before? You can sort of gather yourself and find that info. You may need time to plan a research strategy and rethink how much time. It gives you a little bit of distance, and you just need to keep them in the loop as to how, if anything changes, just let them know. So, like I said, best resource, estimate time and cost, put it in writing, and get approval. I have some horror stories that I can tell when we meet that are kind of funny, but I'm really glad that I didn't. I'm really glad that now I have a little bit. I've gathered some tools that can protect me, and that I won't have really, you want to avoid having these sort of difficult problems. And putting things in writing is one of the tools.